Thank you very much and welcome to the latest updates on the world's hot issues on the Cartoon Carnival 2016 YouTube channel. Below is the detailed content. AFP news agency reported that thousands of people participated in the protest. New situation in the BBC capital of Lucia recently, while the country's National Assembly artists prepared procedures to override President Glicia's veto of the Foreign Agents Law. The Foreign Agents Act requires individuals and organizations receiving more than 20% foreign funding to register as organizations representing foreign interests, and to be supervised by the Russian judiciary and could be forced to share sensitive information or face large fines. Opponents of the new bill have compared it to a similar law in force in Russia since 2012, which they call is Russian law, and at the same time criticizes the Dream Party for wanting to adopt this method to get closer to Moscow and destroy the effort to get Russia to join the Union, Europe EU. According to Politico, the U.S. Department of State announced the Georgian politicians and officials responsible for promoting the Foreign Agents Law will face visa restrictions. In his statement, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken emphasized that Georgia's future actions will determine the next step. Washington's next move. Responding to the U.S. move, the Georgia Dream Party accused Washington of pursuing a policy of intimidation and called the visa restriction recently imposed by President Joe Biden's administration an ultimatum. Russian newspaper EADL quoted Russian Senator Grigory Karashin as believing that Western pressure on the Georgian government after the country passed the Foreign Agents Law is another attack on Russia's position. Mr. Karashin said, "I agree with the Prime Minister of Georgia and his statement that some people want to use Georgia to create a second front against Russia." Previously, Georgian Prime Minister Kobakhidze noted that the country needs a foreign agent law to limit outside influence and avoid repeating Ukraine's fate. Mr. Kobakhidze emphasized that some people want turbid water in Georgia. "We do not want that. Some people want to organize Maidan. We don't want Maidan. Some people want to create a second front against Russia. We don't want that." According to the newspaper Rosov RGDU, Russian President Vladimir Putin made a statement regarding Lucia's situation during a press conference in Minsk with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Mr. Putin called the threats of the European Commissioner and helium against with Prime Minister Joosha Ms. Bakugi is a political storm. Mr. Putin said it is regrettable that the lack of responsibility of mid-level officials, especially in this field, is increasing and we have to regularly face it ourselves. This, at the same time emphasizing that the EU has many commissioners who often change and say meaningless things, while Russia's first deputy permanent representative to the United Nations by Michi Polyestra expressed hope that Georgia will wise enough not to lean towards the US like Ukraine did. It is known that Georgia is a country that once belonged to the Soviet Union in the sandy region bordering Russia in the north. Russian-Croatian relations have always been tense since the military conflict broke out in August 2008, when Georgia attacked two separatist regions of Afkia and South Ossetia. Russia opened a military intervention plan and Galicia from August 8, 2008 and ended after 5 days of fighting. Groza suffered heavy damage to forces and infrastructure defense. Russia recognition for the independence of Abkhazia and Nam Ossetia, but most of the international community does not consider as legitimate new images released by the U.S. Air Force showing a top-secret stealth nuclear bomber worth $745 million. America had its first test flight. The B-21 Rider makes its public debut in December 2022, but the U.S. government has so far remained tight-lipped about this advanced radar-evading aircraft. The test flight is an important step before the U.S. approves the production of a minimum order of 100 B-21 Rider positions. The B-21 Rider is described as a dual-capacity bomber, able to drop both conventional and nuclear bombs. This May, during a hearing at the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee, Mr. Andrew Hunter, Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Air Force for Technology Procurement and Logistics, confirmed that the B-21 flight test program is currently going on schedule. Mr. Hunter shared that this is the first aircraft to be more digitized, contributing to meeting the program's requirements. The B-21 is a long-range stealth attack bomber with high survivability. His Daily Mail newspaper reported that the B-21 is expected to gradually replace the B-1 and B-2 bombers, and play a key role in supporting national security goals. As well as supporting U.S. allies and partners globally, the B-21 weapon system is produced under a U.S. Air Force contract with North Group. The U.S. Air Force revealed that the aircraft is expected to be put into use in mid-2020s with a goal of producing at least 100 Chun-like the B-21. The Raider is a nuclear-capable bomber with 6 experimental aircraft being produced by Natagraman and each expected to cost $750 million. All enemy radars and will be equipped with the latest features in military technology. 21 Raider weighs about 6,007 kg with a wingspan of 52.4 m and can reach a maximum speed of 999.4 km an hour. The U.S. Air Force estimates that the B-21 program will likely cost $203 billion over 30 years to develop. Fleet purchases and maintenance. For many countries, the development of new, effective weapons and cost savings is one of the top priorities in the defense sector. Therefore, recently, the British Army launched a new laser weapon, costing only $13 per shot, with advertising that it can eliminate missiles or fighter jets worth millions of USD. He released a video of the test of the LDEW directed energy laser weapon system, called Dragonfire. The video was recorded during the successful test of Dragonfire attacking an aerial target that took place in January. In Scotland, the US channel CNN reported that this laser weapon has the potential to help the British military save tens of millions of dollars compared to missile interception systems that are undertaking similar air defense tasks, the Ministry of Defense said. He said, Dragonfire can accurately attack targets as small as coins at long range. However, the agency did not give specific information about the distance. Minister of Defense, he grands up in September 1st after the Dragonfire test assessed this advanced weapon as having the potential to revolutionize the battle space by reducing dependence on expensive ammunition. In addition, the British Ministry of Defense said the laser beam can penetrate metal, leading to structural damage or more serious consequences if targeting a missile warhead. The agency claims it can eliminate targets at a fraction of the cost of anti-aircraft missiles. Previously, the British Ministry of Defense concluded that this weapon has the potential to become a low-cost and long-term alternative for certain tasks that missiles currently undertake. German Prime Minister Olaf Scholz pledged to continue military support for Ukraine, but once again explained why the country cannot supply Taurus long-range missiles to Kiev. Mr. Scholz has stated his opposition to sending Taurus missiles to Ukraine, because it would mean German soldiers would have to help Ukraine set targets as well as perform other tasks. This is not possible if you do not want to become a party to the conflict, but still want to continue to be Europe's largest donor. Prime Minister Sun also explained that so far Berlin has spent $30 billion America to support the signing of tank air defense systems and ammunition. However, Germany is concerned that routed cruise missiles could be used to attack deep inside Moscow territory. He said to ensure the system Taurus missile system is used responsibly, German soldiers must be present in Ukraine. This will mark a huge increase in tension in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The German leadership refuses to provide Taurus long-range cruise missile took place in the context of the US and UK both sending their latest weapons to the press. Washington at that time also said that according to President Joe Biden's instructions, they had transferred to PS the long-range Army ATACMS tactical missile system for use in Ukraine. British officials at that time also confirmed that London had transferred laser-guided bombs and had just called for to Ukraine. Ukraine has asked Germany to supply the country with Taurus missiles for quite a long time. These missiles are considered similar with the Storm Shadow missile that he provided to Ukraine. However, the Thanos missile can fly farther than the Stormad. The German Chancellor has repeatedly rejected the transfer of Taurus missiles to Ukraine, according to him, to use these missiles effectively. German soldiers must participate, and this is a line that he does not want to cross. This topic was raised again after the US decided to allocate another aid package to Ukraine. However, Mr. John continued to maintain his position himself and said he had no intention of changing his decision. Prime Minister Viktor Orban said that Hungary is reassessing the country's role in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, because Budapest has no intention of participating in actions that would drag member states into war. Ukraine conflict leads to direct conflict with Russia. Mr. Orban said, Hungary must redefine its stance. Our lawyers and officials are seeking ways to allow Hungary to continue to exist as a NATO member, without participating in NATO activities outside its territory. We need to create a new approach, a new definition of our position as a force for peace within NATO. According to the Hungarian Prime Minister, there are disturbing similarities between information from the media and statements from Western politicians. West on the Ukrainian conflict and the atmosphere before World War I and II. Mr. Orban said, adding that working groups within NATO are assessing the best ways for the bloc to further increase its involvement in the conflict. What's happening today in Bruxelles and Washington seems to be setting the stage for a possible direct military conflict. We could call it preparations for Europe, safely, to enter the war. And this conflict, he warned that the end result of these actions could be a direct conflict between the alliance, European NATO and Russia, a grim prospect because the conflict would involve nuclear powers. While RT quoted former NATO Military Committee Chairman Harhout as saying that the West is portraying the conflict in Ukraine as a fight for freedom, but wants to turn a blind eye to the terrible losses on the battlefield of QF in an interview on Alexander One Big Mart descendant of Germany's first chancellor and also host of Real Polytech, Mr. Kuret argued the West is trying to justify their participation in conflict by emphasizing that they act to defend freedom and common values. However, this is wrong and unusual, this former official affirmed, adding that it was the hostility from the West that caused heavy damage to Ukraine, a country he said had no family. There is no family without deaths, they are injured on top of the millions of people who have had to leave their homeland, not to mention the West, not even trying to limit the casualties and damage of prolonging the conflict by pumping in weapons for Ukraine. According to the former German general, this prolongs the suffering of the people and increases the destruction.